Performance is something that all of us are exposed to in our lives. From the cradle to the grave, performance is all around us. In this video, I'm going to be talking to you about the 5 steps that you need to do to have ready to have a performance system that's fit for purpose in your business. Hi folks, my name is Mahmood. I am the accountant, educator, mentor, and now proud author of the book, I Hate Numbers. On my channel, I Hate Numbers, I aim to improve your financial awareness, improve the battle that goes on between your ears, and help you and your business make more money, save tax and time. What's not to love about that? Let's crack on with the video. Performance is something that's all around us, and performance is fundamentally dealing with how are we doing. So the moment we're born, people are going to be asking how we're doing, looking at our ability to walk, our ability to talk, and how cute we may be. I was a cute baby, by the way, according to my mum. As we grow older and we go to school, we're going to be making those same observations about how we're performing, perhaps by looking at our ability to read, to interact with other children, the ability to pass exams. As we move up and we go to work, we work for other companies, then that same question is going to be asked about how we're performing in our job role. When we run our own businesses, it's that same idea. We need to know, it's really critically important to understand how we are performing in our business. Now, I said there were 5 steps in setting up a performance system in your business. Now, it's critical. Performance is not just saying how we're doing. We're talking about a performance system that only gives us insight to how we're performing, how we're doing in our business, but also gives us the ability to manage that process as well. Having measures by themselves is no good unless you're actually going to do something. So what's step number 1? Well, step number 1 is for you to isolate, to identify fundamentally what your critical success factors are. What does that mean? What is it you have to do well at? What areas do you have to perform excellently at in order not only to sustain your business, but to drive it forward and ultimately reach your Northern Star, your objectives? How do we go about finding out what those are? Well, your mission statement, your aspirations, what your Northern Star resonates and looks like here is the driver behind identifying your critical success factors. If I take the idea and the concept of a retailer, for example, a retailer may be thinking that for them to perform well, to generate the level of perhaps profitability in cash, to keep clients satisfied, keep customers coming back for more, they've got to have the right product mix, and it's got to be at value for money. That is what their customers, they're identified with, and that's what they've got to excel at in order to achieve those performance objectives. If you're an arts company, it may be audience development that's really key for you and your critical success factor. Having identified what your critical success factors are, the next thing you need to do, you need to identify what are those KPIs, as they sometimes call them, key performance indicators, targets, measures, metrics. Take your pick, folks, as the term that sits more comfortably with you. What are the KPIs that you have to select that gives you insight, that tells you if you're progressing towards achieving those critical success factors? Now, when we talk about metrics, when I talk about KPIs, is numbers in themselves are not good enough. Numbers are really useful, they give us insight, but that's not the complete picture. There's an old management adage that says you cannot manage what you cannot measure. And it has a certain element of truth behind it, but raw numbers themselves only give you one dimension, one element of the performance. There are certain things that we may not be aware of, that we can't see, that we can't measure, that are just as important. So for example, the context of employee satisfaction and motivation is not something that's directly measurable by raw numbers, but we can still capture the essence of that, and measures can be numbers, observations, surveys. So all of those things conspire to give us the KPIs. We don't want to drown in KPIs. We need to be careful about what we select as KPIs. Having identified our critical success factors, having identified our KPIs, we then need to set targets for those KPIs. Those targets can either be soft, they can either be extremely bonkers and tough, or they can be stretching targets there as well. Stretching targets is always the way to go. If we don't set targets, if we don't set milestones, how do we know we're making the right progress towards ultimately achieving our critical success factors and getting to our Northern Star? We then need to think, number 4, having talked about critical success factors, having talked about KPIs, Having talked about setting targets for those KPIs, we then need to establish and understand the initiatives. What is it we're actually going to do? What's the actual action plan, the activity plan that we and our team are going to implement and put into practice in order to actually get to those? Lastly, we've got to be able to, armed with all this information that we're collating, armed with all this thing going around us here, and it might seem overwhelming, by the way, so we need to take those micro steps to set the framework. You will not be able to complete it all overnight. Lastly, we have to review, we have to monitor, and we have to act on this. So we need to be able to monitor and review what targets we set ourselves, those footprints, those milestones we measure our progress against. We need to see how we're actually doing against where we thought we would be. If we're on path, fantastic, we can relax. If we're deviating either negatively or positively, then we need to take action, understand what's going on, and to put it right. Underpinning all of those 5 steps, 2 or 3 things that need to be factored in as well. You need to make sure you've got a good resource access. And that's not just money, by the way, even though money is important. Do you have the right skill set? Do you have the right access to knowledge? If you don't, do you have a plan? So all of this has to be translated into your financial story. If you understand what the financial implications are, what the cash flow future looks like with all this activity plan, it's going to be much easier for you to achieve what you're setting out to achieve. And lastly, it's about behaviors and value and culture. If you're in a situation where you're literally measuring very narrow things, if you haven't really got a robust framework of a performance system, then it will take time for you and your team to modify and change behavior. And it takes time to turn things around if you've not really got a practical fit for purpose performance system. So make sure you've got the right values, make sure you've got the right culture, make sure there's not too much toxicity in your work environment, and you'll be much better armed to reach what you're setting out to achieve. Folks, let's round up here. So we've talked about critical success factors, and they might be specific to your industry. They may be generated from your mission statement. That's a good source of reference. You're talking about KPIs, the measures, the metrics. We're talking about the targets for those KPIs. We're talking about the initiatives that we must put into practice to achieve that. And we're also talking about reviewing and monitoring. We need to make sure we've got good information systems. We've got resources at our disposal. And let me complete this with an overview of something that might apply in your personal lives. So for example, if your objective, your Northern Star, is to lead a healthier lifestyle, the next thing you've got to decide is what's a critical success factor that you've identified to help you get to that better lifestyle. And it may be reducing your blood pressure. Having done that, then the measure for that, a KPI, a target, would be a particular number that you set yourself depending on where your actual blood pressure is at the moment. And then you have to measure and you have to monitor and review what your blood pressure is looking like. Review and monitor that typically on a weekly or a monthly basis. If it's not quite coming down, if it's still too high, then the action points are from that review is to look at your diet. Do you need to change the balance of your diet? Do you have too much salt in your diet? Whatever it is all based on your Northern Star, leading to your critical success factors, leading to your KPIs, leading to what you set yourself as a target, leading to reviewing and leading to action. If you got some value out of this video, I'd love your comments, feedback, share it with those who you feel will get benefit from that. And until next week, folks, have a good think about your performance systems in your business.